Dr. Andrea Labuti, and I'm here with Helena and Joao. We're doing our 6th, if you can believe it, live Q&A. How are you today, Helena?
Great, feeling great.
Good.
It's to be together once again.
Absolutely. So today we're gonna go through some questions that people wrote in that have to do with their children with autism. One actually is a person that's actually pregnant, wanted some insights into some good approaches for her unborn baby. We're also going to answer some questions about why, why does my autistic daughter undress herself? Why does she always want to take her clothes off? Why does she chew on things constantly? Also, another parent asking about how to best connect with their child. And also a parent asking about future prospects for her child, whether the chosen family future plan is good for her son as well. So the way Helena and I usually do this is I will read the question that came in from the parent, and then Helena can read Joao's response. So let's get started. Okay, so this first question, let's see, dear Joao, all you share, all the answers you give to other parents resonates deeply in my soul, and I can listen through your words, the wisdom, love, and light that my daughter and the collective have shared with me. As a mother, I would love to continue supporting my daughter in all her aspects, spiritual, energetic, emotional, mental, and physical. Even though she and I use telepathy as our primary communication, your insights or communication with her would bring more light and probably more information regarding my questions. Thank you for your kind and lovely support. So here are her questions. What is my daughter communicating, and how can I support her on the following? Number 1, she is chewing on food, fruits and vegetables mainly, on orange skin. However, she swallows only a small amount of them, and she throws or spits the rest to the floor. It's an interesting question. Number 2, she likes to undress herself at home and sometimes in public places, but we in the school prevent her from doing it, of course, in those places. Number 3, she had one short seizure at school 1 month ago. Will she have more? It was not at home, and it was only once. Her CAT scan was normal. I'm giving her CBD oil. Question is it supporting her? And another question is, I know that my daughter prefers telepathy. She is receiving RPM lessons. For those of you that don't know, RPM is rapid prompting method. We are practicing at home, but not often, depending on her willingness and schedule. Should I try to increase the RPM practice with her, or should I just follow her lead and wish for telepathic communication? I'm a little concerned about how she will communicate with the rest of the people if we don't practice RPM. And then the final question, this is a really good set of questions this mom has. The final question is, how can I support her more in her grounding and integration into her body? I feel my own grounding and integration is very important to her. So she feels her own grounding and integration is very important for her. What would you suggest? Okay, and in the meantime, we have some insights from Joao. We'll wait and see what he has to say.
Today we had the soul doctor with us, and he has just added, before I answer or read out the question, the answers he gave to that mom, he tries to elicit and tell everyone that all questions are relevant and not exclusive to autism.
Yes.
So it's a reminder on the soul doctor's part that he is willing to answer all questions that people may have, regardless of having to do with autism or not.
I think that's really awesome. And the last one that we're going to do today is a non-autistic person. Actually, she's a good friend of mine, and she had some questions, and they do not relate to autism. So it will be interesting to hear that. But yeah, we will open it up to any and all questions, no matter what. And I don't know if you guys watched a previous Q&A that we did when I asked Joao about my dog who had just passed away the day before. and that was just so beautiful.
We had a reminder from our soul doctor.
Yeah, yeah,
So that people know that these answers, they can send in their questions and they're not
absolutely.
exclusive to autism.
Sure.
Going back to the mom and the
Yep.
questions that you brought up, Andy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going now to read out Joao's answer. So, dear mom, how are you? Thank you for your kind words. She is a soul with a lot of knowledge, and a need to chew on orange peel has to do with the calming effect it has on her. For citrus fruits and essences are good to ease the mind and lighten up the body. She knows the exact amount she needs and therefore spits out the remainder. As for clothing, keep a watch out for all the fabrics she uses and the respective dyes. Autism inflicts pain on sensitive bodies, and fabrics that are artificial and plastic produce great discomfort. Pay attention to detergents and cleaning agents and keep the closest to natural. Your daughter will outgrow the habit naturally. When it comes to seizures, many times they have to do with the fact that autistic individuals are not totally grounded. They keep themselves in touch with higher dimensions, and the difference in energy and vibration produces effects in the physical body. As you can see, it is not neurologically based, but rather energetically caused. If the seizures pursue or not is dependent on her need or will to be in touch with higher planes. CBD oil is good for her, but it has to be a brand with good energy frequency. When it comes to communication, continue the two means, that is telepathy and RPM. These bring you closer together and help mutual growth. Communication is based on availability and willingness of all parties. Therefore, impositions should be avoided. When it comes to grounding and integration, it is dependent on many factors, but mostly on the awakening of family members. Mom, see if you yourself ground more to help Gaia and Ascension. Blessings, Joao Carlos.
So that was great, right? So many interesting
ideas.
Yeah, the whole thing with the citrus fruit and essences, good to ease the mind and lighten up the body. I love that. The whole thing about clothing, right? So many of our children are really sensitive. My youngest son, who is not autistic, is completely sensitive, doesn't want any of the tags or any of the harsh fabrics.
Yes, I used to have the same problem with Joao when he was a little. When it came to clothing, I had to pay attention to the type of fabric that the clothing was made of. I used to take a look if it was pure cotton. Cotton is something which is good, at least for Joao it was. Nylon, polyester, those type of fabrics weren't that good. And when it comes to the part that she refers to her child eating orange peel and then spitting it out, I can say that Joao did the same thing, and sometimes he does too. Eating orange peel, eating a lemon peel. Sometimes when we go to the beach, then algae, he would put it in his mouth and chew on some algae. As a young child, he would chew on garlic. He still does sometimes. He would chew on onion.
Wow.
And although, yes, onion. And although at first I was a little bit startled, you should not be eating the orange peel, you should not be eating the lemon peel. Now I'm somehow more pacified with the idea, because I know, as he refers, these children have inner knowledge. We all have, but somehow we have forgotten to access it like they do. And I feel that they know exactly what their bodies need in terms of nutrients. So when I see Joao chewing on garlic or something, then I'm okay with it. I know that he knows it. He might do it for a week or so, and then he stops it, and he doesn't eat it any longer. So it tends to be periodically.
Yeah.
So I really feel that it's got to do with him being sensitive to his body needs, to his physical needs, and maybe he feels that some nutrients or whatever is missing, and he eats those things that he thinks he needs.
You know, I would love to know, because what my son has been doing recently is just chewing on his clothing constantly. When he was little, he did that for a period of time where he would literally destroy his shirts every day. Like he would chew on them so much, and now he's starting to do that again. So I'm wondering if he's deficient in something. That's my first thought, is that he's deficient in something. But anyway, we'll have him answer that question for me at some point.
Joao also went through a period in which he used to chew on his clothes, but sometimes it had to do with herpes that he got on his lips. That hasn't happened so often, or he hasn't chewed on clothes for quite some time. But maybe I think it might have to do with his awareness of what he needs. So they may not have that deficiency, and therefore that habit or that trait has gone away completely.
Absolutely. You know, I have a question for Joao, another one. So he says CBD oil is good, but it has to be a brand with good energy frequency. How do we figure that out? I mean, obviously I could show Joao what brand I'm using and he can say yes or no, but how can we figure that out? You know, because there's so many different brands and there's so many companies saying, this is the best one, this is the best one. You know, it's like, how do you really know? Like, what are your thoughts on that? And maybe he can answer that separately when he's ready. That would be helpful.
I know how we can, some things that we can do in order to find out. But I'll leave it for Joao. Maybe in a minute or two we may have the soul doctor, since he's been with us today, and see if his thoughts align with mine. However, there are ways in which we can find out if, energetically speaking, we can find out if something is adequate or the best for our body.
Yes.
And I think that he also, when it comes to seizures, he also tells us something else which is very relevant. So he not only draws the awareness to the need of what we use, in this case the CBD being the most adequate energetically for the physical body. But he also says that you cannot say that the seizures will stop or not, because he also draws our attention to the fact that it has got to do with the individual himself, and sometimes also with the environment that surrounds him. Which will make him want to be more or less grounded, and therefore also his eagerness to be in touch with other planes. And when it comes to energy frequency and vibration, then we have disparities. So these seizures tend to occur. And I can refer to Joao's seizures too. He also refers to them as being energy activations for the work, for his healing work. So it is, although there are ways in which we can help our children to control the seizures, sometimes we do not manage totally to do that. And I can say that Joao is one of the cases. Although he's being medicated for his seizures, it is not completely in control.
Right, because there's always going to be some breakthrough depending on so many different factors and energies and activations. Sure. Okay, good.
It refers to the will and the need of the autistic person, or the person who has the individual who has the seizures. And I think they will want to be more or less grounded depending on their surrounding environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know that's so important. You know, you have to create the environment that they will thrive in rather than force them to try to thrive in or force them to come into the environment the way things are. That's part of the
Yes,
game.
and I also think there's another point that I was surprised when he wrote it, but I think it's rather important. He refers to the seizures as not being neurologically
Yes.
based, but rather energetically based.
Yes.
Because
Fascinating.
we need to focus a lot on neurology, and he gives us a different perspective. It's before it becomes neurological, but at first it's
Energetic. Exactly. It's not like it's not your typical well, when you really think about it, you know, yeah, I guess you could have obviously physical reasons for seizures. You could have brain tumors and swelling and other kinds of things. You know, when somebody has a stroke, they're at an increased risk for a seizure if they have bleeding in their brain, or you know, alcohol withdrawal, or I'm trying to think of the people that come into the hospital with seizures. So certainly a physical, like a toxin or an injury, but yeah, there's this whole energetic thing that we don't think about, and we really should. Makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the next set of questions from another mom. So this mom sort of gave some, you know, when we got her response or her question, it was, I would like to connect with my son, heal him from my parenting mistakes, and support and guide him in love and joy, so that he may live the best life possible. So those are sort of some general things that she was asking. Well, not really general. How do I heal him from my parenting mistakes? You know, I sort of know where this is going to go, but go ahead and read the response for that. That would be great.
Right. Just a minute, Andy. I need to find the answer here because can we
Okay.
Can
Yep.
I start reading?
Yeah.
Okay. Dear Mom, first of all, thank you in advance, and let me start by telling you the following. Your child loves you deeply and desires to reach you as much as you wish to connect with him, but there are steps to be taken before reaching that stage. In the first place, in order to truly connect with someone you wish, it is of utter importance that you learn to connect with your essence and inner being, and learn to thrive on the energy of love and gratitude for all that you are, have, and create. Listen to your inner support system by paying attention to your emotions. When you ask me how you can help your child and heal him from your parenting mistakes, you are coming out from the energy of fear and guilt. Of course, along our lives, there are moments of regret for wrongdoings, but we cannot dwell on it forever. Connect with your inner self and ask for the energy of compassion and forgiveness. When you do this and feel that you have open space for healing yourself, visualize your child and talk to him heart to heart. Tell your child also as many times as you can, by looking at him in the eyes, that you love him and are grateful for all his teachings, despite you not having at all times understood him. When the energy of fear and guilt are clear, there is a new path to be followed with mutual joy and fulfillment. Blessings, Joao.
So that's a super important topic, you know, the whole part of having regrets and feeling like we've made mistakes. And I don't know if I ever told you this story. The very first autism conference that I went to, I don't know if you remember Dan, Defeat Autism Now. They had Dan conferences.
Yes.
So way back, my son was only two. It was April before his second birthday. And I remember sitting at a table, you know, I had met Sidney Baker, and he was of course one of the founders of Dan. And so we were having dinner with a group of other physicians and stuff. And I remember sitting at the dinner table, and lamenting, oh, I wish I didn't do this. I wish I hadn't done that. He got, injured by some environmental toxins. And the person across from me said, you need to get off of that regret train. You need to turn it around and start focusing on what you have now and what you can do now to be positive. And it's super true. We can sit there and lament over what we should have done, but it doesn't serve any purpose. We have to find the forgiveness for ourselves and the compassion for ourselves, which is one of the lessons on our journey that all of us, can do more work on. I don't know many people. I'm trying to think if I know any people that are really very compassionate and forgiving of themselves. So that's a big one.
Yes, I think that's really a big one. I think what Joao once again tells us is the need for us not to continue dwelling on the energy of fear and guilt. We have to move out of that energy. And once we move out of that energy, then we will learn to have compassion for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and then for others, to be grateful, to see that everything in our lives, there is a purpose to it, and it's helping us to get us on track with our life path, and it's for our highest good, although sometimes it may not look so, but it's a lesson to be learned, but it's a good lesson. I don't think it's something that we are being reprimanded or punished. I do not see things as punishment. I rather see them as the universe somehow guiding us. Sometimes we do not pay much attention. We tend to be a little distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are too distracted, I think that maybe the lessons or the way the universe works is to increase.
Turn up the heat. Turn up the heat, right?
Start paying more attention
Yes.
to what to the guidance which is given to us.
Yeah.
So when I ask the universe to give me the answers for something, I always make sure I ask for guidance to be given in a way in which I do understand it, and for it to be given with ease and grace.
Yes. All good intentions to set. Sure. Yeah. Yes. I'm notorious for needing to be, knocked over the head to get the point sometimes. It's like, and the heat, it just gets turned up a little more and a little more and a little more until you go, okay.
Yeah. So that I always ask the universe when I need answers, okay, universe, please give me the answer to this or that, but please let me be aware of it, give me the signs and make me be aware of it, and please let it be with ease and grace.
Definitely.
So that's my way of getting around to it, but certainly there are important things that we have to keep in mind. The need to be compassionate towards ourselves, to be very grateful for everything we have in our lives.
Absolutely.
And forgiveness, and first of all to find a place of forgiveness for ourselves, because when we forgive ourselves, then of course we are more willing, and it's easier to forgive others.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so let us go on to this next interesting question. This is about a child's, like the family, I guess the family interest and whether the son will be part of it in the future. So question for Joao. Dear Joao, I would like to know if you think the way we are now beginning to follow with our son is a good option for him and for the family for his future life. He will soon begin to learn the way of permaculture, and this is a very sustainable type of agriculture and way of life, in a series of seminars given at enlarged weekends several times a year, parallel to his last 2 years of school, in a farm in Austria that is a pioneer in this way of agriculture. And we want to put it into practice in the future in our own project in a farm. In the future, when he reaches his college age, we discovered now the possibility offered by some private universities in my country for young people with special intellectual needs to follow a career in environmental education, where they will have access to this field where special people usually do not have access, to learn to be the ones that will educate other people to take care of the environment and our marvelous and unique planet through recycling, planting trees, and much more. Thank you so much to Joao for his insights, and to you, Andy. Thank you again for doing what we're doing with our children. Okay, good. Okay, so let's see what Joao has to say.
Okay, in response to his mom, he wrote, "Dear Mom, thank you for writing. Let me start by saying how important it is for humans to be in close contact with nature, for we are a part of nature and our body depends on it for well-being and depends on access to all its elements for balance. With industrialization and growth of large cities, humankind deviated from its true essence and changed the countryside for the city. This brought about many changes, including highly toxic environments in which autism played a role. Due to its characteristics, autism appeals that people go back to simple and healthy living, so investing in agriculture is a huge step itself for your son and for all involved in this project. As for higher education, do not give it such a great focus, for knowledge can be attained through various ways, and that means is soon to be outdated. Work on your project and on connecting to the land, as well as your inner self, and you will connect wholesomely to your child and be surprised on how much knowledge you hold in the field of permaculture to make your aspirations a success, whatever the land you may choose. Blessings, João Carlos."
So I love this on so many levels because of the reiteration of the importance for us to connect to nature, number one, but also number two, how he talks about higher education and how that might be outdated. Because interestingly enough, the school that I'm opening, the Acton Academy, they talk about, like, they really are starting to prepare parents that maybe college isn't the best option for everybody. Maybe it's not a lot of bang for your buck, right? You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to put children through universities, and what is the return on that investment? Are they really getting you know, the jobs and the means and whatever from the education? Not necessarily. Now, there's certainly going to be some highly specific things like engineers, architects. I think of my niece who's a civil engineer. She's building bridges. Yeah, you need all those skills. But for some of the general stuff, you know, like a degree in business, do you really need to go get a degree in business, or do you need to learn about businesses outside of a college? You know what I mean? So interesting take on education. And I totally believe that that is a true statement that he said, and makes so much sense.
Yes, I think it does. And I think there is going to be a huge breakthrough in terms of education and methodology and the things that we have been used to. So I think there's going to be a far more greater emphasis in lifelong learning. And maybe we don't need necessarily to go to certain kind of institutions physically.
Mm-hmm.
We can have access to technology, and besides the technology, I think there's also another reference that Joao picks up on, which is we have a lot of knowledge that sometimes we are not aware of. And I think that Joao, he himself, is the portrait of that, because Joao has not been to, he does not read books, he does not pick up a book, he does not pick up magazines. He's never been to, he went to school, of course, but he didn't complete his secondary education because formal education just was not the right fit for him, at least in mainstream schooling. He's not been to university, yet he shares with us so much knowledge. And
Yes.
I think he's just showing us that we can access knowledge. And when he refers to this mom, for her to get in touch with the true essence, her inner self, and also that they have much knowledge already in the field of permaculture, I think there is an implicit reference to previous lifetimes in which people may have been in close contact with agriculture, and they already have that wisdom, and
Yes.
that's why that they are once again in this lifetime going to
The same
invest
field.
in the
Yep.
same
Yep.
the same field.
Sure.
So I think that's a take for us. I'm relative to that issue. Then
I couldn't agree more that we do. And you know, I think of Joao as an example of what we all can become, you know, what we all have access to, and he's just like a living reminder of how powerful we are in terms of tapping into things and understanding things. Like, I just am so grateful that I'm working with you guys, and that I feel so privileged that I get to be friends with you guys, and that we get to talk about these things. And he just is it's just so optimistic for me to listen to him and hear him and realize that we have the potential also, that you know, that everybody is equipped with it, that it's just you know, we have to tune into it, and we have to practice, and how exciting, just exciting.
Yes, I think we have to make peace with ourselves, Andy. As a mom, I'm also thankful that I have this opportunity to share so much of the things I've gone through with Joao. Because when I read the questions of many mothers, in regard to their children and their anxiety when it comes to schooling, and as if knowledge has always has to come external to the individual, and we tend to look at the individual as an empty vessel, ready to absorb all the information which is given. And maybe Joao is trying to give us a different perspective. And I went also through a lot of pain myself when I had to remove Joao from the school system, because there was a lot of anxiety. All the teachers were not eager to invest. The school system was not eager to invest on him, and it still happens with so many children. Nowadays, I continue to be part of groups of moms of autistic children, and things haven't changed much in terms of the school system. These children, or children with a difference, are many times put apart, and they do not fit into the system. There is not much investment when it comes to them in terms of knowledge. And I always used to think, but my son, he loves to learn. He's always talking about education, the importance of education. I'm just going to remove him out of the system. He's not going to be in touch with what he loves. And throughout the years, I have come to make peace with myself, because I see that he has another way of picking up knowledge, of accessing knowledge.
Yes.
I never taught him English. And he writes English fluently as he writes Portuguese. He English as he writes Portuguese. So
that's phenomenal. This is going to be a really stupid question, but so in Portuguese schools, only Portuguese is spoken?
No. Only Portuguese is spoken, but they do have English as a foreign language. They do have, in some cases, Spanish as a foreign language. So they do have access to learning languages, but it isn't to the measure in which Joao writes. He writes fluently. He has a very rich vocabulary, and I am acquainted with what children and students do, because I'm in the educational system myself.
Sure.
And I have many students in secondary education, 16, 17 years old, who have always been at school, have always had the language lessons, and they do not write like Joao.
I know, it's so fascinating. And I remember his reply when I said, how do you do that? He says he simply turns into the English version of my English self. And I'm like, how do I do that? I want to tap into my Portuguese self. Is that possible? I mean, you know what I mean?
This is just, I just recalled a situation in which I had Joao a few years ago. We're talking about these selves, the multiple selves that we have. On one occasion, he was attending, he was having a therapy, and he had finished the therapy, and I still hadn't come along. They were waiting for me, and all of a sudden, the therapist heard Joao say a full sentence or speaking with no fluently, just as you and me are speaking, no problem. And she was completely astounded. She couldn't believe her eyes. She was completely shocked. And when I got to the therapist, she says, Elena, I want you to ask Joao something. When you go home, please ask him what happened here a while ago. And she didn't tell me anything else. When I got home, I asked Joao what had happened. And he just said, look, I tuned into my wholesome self and I just spoke fluently. And, you know, and sometimes.
So the question then is, does he not want to tune into that part of himself to speak regularly? Like help me with that.
Is Joao also focuses that there are multiple issues and multiple factors that come into play. And I think it's got to do not only with the will of the individual and of the soul, but the thing is when we reincarnate, we have contracts, we have life purposes.
Right.
And he has also written that until most of the factors are not accomplished, for instance, if our children have come for the awakening of the family, if there is not that move in terms of the family, then there won't be the move in terms of the child.
I get it. Right. So they came here. It's like, how much more effective is he at awakening people by being in a nonverbal state? Like, it's so powerful. People are like, I want to hear what this nonverbal person has to say. And it makes you stop and go, wow, you know, like it's a much stronger, you know, megaphone.
Yes, it is, like you say, a much stronger megaphone, because sometimes I look back at myself. If Joao, of course, I would like my child, I think every parent we always want to see our loved ones wholesome and not going through pain and not going through suffering. But the thing is, if Joao did not have this issue, then our life paths would have been very much different. And for instance, as a young child, if Joao had spoken about when he started writing that his speeches or his short stories with God, he didn't want to be on this planet. He wanted to go back home. He wanted to go to the plains. There was too much dense energy on this planet, and so on. If he had spoken that verbally, I don't, as a mother, when I look back, I think I would not have been able to accept, because even when it came to writing, it brought me pain, because I said, okay, I wanted my child to express and communicate, but does it have to be with the spiritual content and in this manner?
Yes.
and because I was also very much of a rational thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And where does this all come about? When he doesn't, we're not people that go to the church every single Sunday. He's never been to a Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very mind-boggling,
Mm-hmm.
and it did bring me grief and pain, although it also brought me content. But the
Yes.
thing is, if we had spoken these things verbally as a young child, 10, 11 years old, I would probably have taken him to a psychiatrist and thought my child was having schizophrenia or some kind of thing,
Yes.
and have him on heavy medication.
Yes.
And I think things would have turned out completely different.
Totally. Yes. And I often say, you know, when I had my private practice and I would see children getting better before my eyes, you know, a couple of them losing their autism diagnosis, I look back and I say, well, if my son had done that, I wouldn't have done all of the other work that I've done on myself, and, you know, starting the school and writing books, and like all this other stuff wouldn't have happened. So it's almost like a tough love, right?
Yeah.
It's like a tough love where they're forcing us to do things differently, forcing.
Yes, and even the silence that I
forced.
have on the part of my child, I used to breathe on silence a lot as a young child. I also had this issue that I was not, although I spoke, I was not understood most of the times. So I was also had a very rich inner world. I lived too much to myself. Sometimes I did feel a little, as in, not, I did not want to use the word outcast, but maybe not fitting totally
Yeah.
into the environments, the context in which I was in, even in family. So Joao's silence led me to face my own silence issues,
Mm-hmm.
and to make it somehow give it importance, and to outgrow my fears and beliefs that nobody will listen to what I've got to say, or most people.
Yeah.
So I've given great importance to voice,
Sure.
to speak, communication, and putting out what you have inside, so that
Yes.
you can share it, because when we share what we have inside, then it brings people closer.
Yep.
And change comes about.
Absolutely.
So once again, we have to go back to what Joao was telling this mother a while ago, to thank her child for the lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the lessons have been tough, we have to take a look at these tough lessons that we have gone through, and that sometimes we go through, and be grateful, because we will outgrow the pain, and we will become far richer beings, and more compassionate.
Sure.
And I think our planet needs that, more compassionate human beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So such good conversation. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this last question comes from a person that is not the mother of an autistic person, but she is actually pregnant and had some questions. So what are the best, here's the questions. What are the best first steps to take in building a healing practice from home while nurturing an infant? I have a daughter on the way, due in later this year. Second question, how do I eliminate fear of not enough money so that I don't have to work a normal job, so I can pursue my passions, which is caring for my family and helping others find the healing within themselves? Number 3, do I need to vaccinate my baby girl? How do I convince the 2% of myself that is nervous about repercussions of not vaccinating that the baby will be fine without vaccinations? I really don't want to vaccinate, but I really don't want her to end up with polio or measles. Good question. And then the last question, how do I deepen and hone in on my capabilities as a healer, like mediumship, psychic abilities, shamanism, etc.? Okay. And you're up.
Have you finished, Andy?
Yep.
There was no sound. There was no sound. That's why. I thought something was wrong with the system. So, my dear friend, thank you for your questions. First, I would like to tell you that it is of utter importance that the first few months or first year you are dedicated to the beautiful soul that is arriving on this plane, and that she is helped to ground fully. Having the energy dispersed at this stage will not help either of you. Fear is the energy that keeps us away from the abundance of the universe. It is important that you work on the feelings of being enough and having enough. If you focus on the perspective of wholesomeness and gratitude, you attract abundance and prosperity. The same thing applies to vaccinating your child. If your focus is on the 2%, it will grow. But if you touch peace in your heart and know and feel she will be safe, she shall be, because our cells pick up on the energy of fear or love, illness or health. My dear friend, there is a right timing for everything in the universe, and you are seeking many answers outside of yourself. Look within and you will find the answers and knowledge you seek. So once again, the message is to look within, because sometimes we always try to find the answers to our true questions outside of ourselves.
Well, it's so easy to want to ask other people and find answers, you know, because we don't trust ourselves. It really has to be an ongoing practice. Every time I have these conversations with you and Joao, it just reminds me, like I said, I just have to keep listening to it over and over, because we're conditioned to do other things and not look within.
Yes, and he's always telling us to work on our self-confidence. Look within and work on your self-confidence.
Yes.
And when we're always looking for the answers outside of ourselves, then we're not so confident that we may have the answers, or we may have the answers, but because it's our voice, let me look outside for reassurance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's something. And he also tells us to, wherever our focus goes, then the growth goes too. So if we focus on fear, even if it's 2%, it's going to grow.
It is, absolutely, right? Yeah, absolutely. So really getting off of that and focusing. I love the focus on wholesomeness and gratitude. I love that. And that's how, you know, because some people think, oh, well, how do I get the positive thoughts and all that? Gratitude is one of the easiest things that you can just get into right away. And it can be, I am so grateful that it's a sunny day. I'm so grateful, you know, there's just so many things that you can be grateful for. I'm grateful for the clothes on my back. I'm grateful for where I live. I'm grateful for my children, right? You can just go on and on and on, and you can just go on this like mini rampage of gratitude and, you know, practice that. And that's, you know, telling the universe, give me more of that, give me more of that, give me more of that, right? More to be grateful for, more to be grateful for. So it doesn't have to be specific to what it is that you think you're looking for. It can just be general things, and things will open up.
Yes, and it helps a lot if we keep a journal of gratitude. I've already had a journal of gratitude. I was going through a more depressive stage, and I needed to work on myself and to refocus. So I started a journal of gratitude. And when you start writing things down, okay, what am I thankful for today? At least 3 things. And then after 2 or 3 days, you'll see that you'll be able to fill a page or page and a half.
Yes.
Yes. Because you start being more aware of so many little things that we are unaware of and that we should be grateful for.
Definitely. Well, listen, so thank you for joining us, and we hope also that you will look at our new book that we put together, Autism, A New Perspective. The Kindle version is available on Amazon. The paperback is soon to follow. We also will be announcing we have just announced actually the 3 free consults. We did a giveaway in the month of April. We are doing a special $99 consult for the month of May if you want to set up a consult with myself and Helena and Joao. You can go over to my website, andrealabuti.com, and figure out how to get in on that. And we will see you again soon. Send your questions, any questions, autism or not, about yourself, about your life, about anything at all. We want to hear them. We're going to keep this thing going, and we're going to get bigger and broader. So thanks, Helena. I hope all of you have a great week.
Thank you. It was great to be with all of you, and please keep on sending in your questions.
Absolutely.